Hello and welcome to my video about Tales of Symphonia's Overlimit system. I promise that it might be more interesting than it sounds. Anyways, let's first start with talking about what Overlimit actually is in Tales of Symphonia before I talk about anything else. Overlimit is a state that you've definitely seen if you've played Symphonia for more than a few hours. It's a state that both enemies and players have access to. Generally speaking, you're usually going to see it when either you get beaten up enough or when you beat a boss up enough. When a character enters Overlimit, they get this black aura for about 8 seconds and gain several benefits. They take half damage, gain slightly reduced casting time, gain access to arts like Mystic Arts and Summons, and are immune to stagger. I personally really like this mechanic, both in gameplay and as a narrative device. Obviously, it sort of represents the character breaking their limits, and I think it always feels kind of badass to power through an enemy's attacks. From a gameplay perspective, I enjoy this mechanic a lot on bosses, since it means you can't just infinite combo every Symphonia boss to death, and it forces you to have to adapt a little bit. You may be curious on the specifics of how Overlimit actually triggers. The basic triggers I vaguely mentioned are based on hit count. The amount of damage dealt by the hits doesn't actually matter at all. Each successful hit on an entity that can enter Overlimit builds what's called tension points. Each character has a set growth rate for how many tension points they receive from any given hit. The tension gauge is an invisible gauge that starts from 0 and goes all the way up to 100. When your tension points hit a total of 100, the character will enter the Overlimit state. You can tell when you're close to having 100 tension points as the character's portrait will start pulsating. To be honest, I don't really know how to describe this effect, but you get the picture. But what actually counts as a hit? Does this count? Does this count? Or what about this? Well, if you answered yes to any of those, you are unfortunately incorrect. Essentially, if you try to do any action in battle to try and mitigate an incoming attack, it will count as a blocked hit and therefore not generate any tension. Any hit that's not blocked in some way will generate tension. Even attacks that deal 0 damage, or attacks that might even heal the target in question. Yep, you can even gain tension through getting healed by the enemy. That being said, there are also 3 other ways of gaining tension points. These sources are the death of certain allies, cooking, and Silva/Tethys seals. These sources are exclusive to the player, as enemies don't seem to gain tension when their own allies die, and enemies can't cook nor can they use Silva or Tethys seal arts. Another thing to note is that there's a grade shop option that you can purchase for 100 grade points that increases the amount of tension points that both players and enemies gain from any in-battle source. I have to specify in battle, since this grade shop option does not seem to affect the tension points that are gained through cooking. For the remainder of this video, I'm going to be diving into the specific numbers behind everything I just talked about. I basically did a bunch of research into how many tension points each party member and boss can generate from any given source, and how many hits they take to enter Overlimit from 0 tension points. First, we're going to talk about the playable characters. Let's start simple, and just go over how many hits each party member takes to enter Overlimit. I'm going to be saying how many hits it takes for the character to enter Overlimit in both the base game and with the grade shop option. I'll mark the hit number that's modified by the grade shop with an asterisk on screen. Alright, let's go. Lloyd takes 67 or 46 hits to go into Overlimit. Colette takes 91 or 62 hits. Genus, Raine, and Regal take 84 or 56 hits. Kratos and Persea take 100 or 67 hits. Sheena takes 56 or 38 hits. Zelos takes 72 or 48. You might notice that Sheena takes the lowest number of hits to enter Overlimit. Sheena in general just has the highest tension growth from pretty much every source you can think of, except for cooking, since everyone gains the same amount there. With the increased tension grade shop option, she generates approximately 2.63 points of tension every time she's hit, which is honestly kind of absurd. She was probably designed this way so she can use her summons more often, which I think is pretty cool. Next, let's talk about character death. The party members have a certain amount of tension that they gain when a party member that they particularly like falls in battle. You'll know when they gain tension, as they'll say something whenever one of their favorite party members die.
I don't believe this. You're not getting away with this! Ah! I'm gonna take you out!
Now, you may be wondering how this interacts with Symphonia's affection system, so let's talk about Lloyd before we talk about anyone else, since he's actually fairly unique in this aspect. Lloyd can only react to one party member's death at a time, and that party member will be whoever he has the highest affection with. This is completely unaffected by how many actual affection points that he has with the party member who has the most affection. What matters is simply if that person has the most affection with Lloyd or not. For example, I set everyone's affection to 0 and Colette's affection to 1, and he will react to Colette's death.
I'm sorry, everyone.
I don't believe this!
Here, I set everyone's affection to 1 and Colette's to 0, and then Lloyd will not care about Colette's death at all and gain 0 tension off of it. Pretty cold, man. So yeah, Lloyd is unique in that his reaction to character death is adapted to whoever he likes most. This means that he can react to anyone and also not react to anyone. Now, let's go over the relationships and how many tension points our favorite characters gain from people they like meeting a tragic end in battle. It's kinda grim when I put it that way. In this section, every character can react to Lloyd's death if they're his highest affection party member. To mark that, I'll put a little heart next to his name so I don't have to keep reiterating myself. So, let's get started. Lloyd gains 15 or 22 tension when his highest affection party member dies. Colette gains 11 or 16 tension, but only when Lloyd dies and has the highest affection with her. Genis gains 12 or 18 tension when Raine, Presea, or Lloyd die. Raine gains 12 or 18 tension if Genis or Lloyd die. Kratos gains 10 or 15 tension when Lloyd dies. Surprisingly, he doesn't react to Lloyd's death if he's not the highest affection party member. Great parenting. Sheena gains 18 or 27 tension when Raine, Zelos, or Lloyd die. Presea gains 10 or 15 tension when Lloyd dies. Regal gains 12 or 18 tension when Presea or Lloyd die. Zelos gains 14 or 21 tension when any female party member dies or Lloyd dies. Again, I'd say the most interesting one here is Sheena. As you may know, Sheena has a bit of a rivalry with Raine.
Dear, this isn't an inn, you know.
What's with the sarcasm, you cold-hearted witch?
Maybe we should just leave her here.
Stop getting in my way!
Same to you.
Women.
But it's kind of funny to see that Sheena reacts to Raine's death, but Raine doesn't reciprocate. I also just think that Sheena having the highest tension growth fits her potential reaction to death so well. If you know her backstory, it totally makes sense that she would absolutely not want to see people dying on her watch. A cool little bit of characterization that's maybe a bit hidden. Speaking of Sheena, let's talk about a way of generating tension that's unique to her alone. Every time you gain a new summon, you also gain a spell that are called Silva Seals or Teta Seals, and an element depending on which summon you just got. Now, these spells don't see a ton of use in game by the average player because they're not overly useful, but what they do is change the element of your weapon to whatever spell you cast. However, this spell actually has a secondary hidden effect of generating tension. Each time Sheena casts a Silva or Teta Seal spell, she gains 3 tension points, or 5 if you have the Grade Shop option on. So, I guess if you ever want to build tension without taking damage or cooking, you can spam these spells. To finish up the playable character section of this video, let's talk about cooking. Interestingly, the tension generated by cooking is its own system and unaffected by the Grade Shop, which made testing a lot easier for me. Thanks, Spamco. Cooking is also interesting as it's the only way I found to decrease tension, other than by going into Overlimit itself. The way tension is generated is based off of whether a character likes or dislikes the ingredients used in the dish or not. I'm actually not super familiar with what foods the characters like, so this is going to be a little less comprehensive than the other parts of the video. But essentially, if the character that's cooking successfully cooks a dish that they're neutral on, i.e. there are no ingredients in the dish that they like or dislike, they'll gain 5 tension. If they fail to cook a dish that they're neutral on, they'll lose 5 tension. If they cook a food with ingredients they like and succeed, they'll gain 10 tension. If they fail at making a dish they like, they'll neither gain or lose tension. Inversely, if a character succeeds at making a dish they dislike, they'll gain 0 tension. If they fail to cook a dish they dislike, they'll lose 10 tension. Other characters in the party also eat the dish that gets made. Depending on if they like or dislike the dish, they'll either gain or lose 5 tension. If they're neutral on the dish that gets made, they don't gain or lose any tension. Now we can finally talk about the stuff that was of personal interest to me when I started this project: enemy overlimits. Enemy overlimits are pretty much identical to player overlimits. They also have a tension gauge that gets filled by them getting hit. I went through every major encounter with overlimit and hand counted how many hits each enemy takes to enter overlimit. This wasn't as grueling as it might sound, since there are plenty of enemies that don't have the ability to enter overlimit, but it was still quite the task. I'm going to show each boss entering overlimit, and also show how many hits they take to enter overlimit in a bit of a montage kind of thing. But before that, I want to talk about 4 bosses that are outliers. Boda, Sheena, in both of their appearances as bosses, and Gatekeeper, all have a unique property when it comes to overlimit. This unique property is that they actually start with a tension value for some reason. I have no idea why this is a thing, but this means that the first overlimit they enter will take fewer hits than every subsequent overlimit. The 4th outlier is Raine. There's actually nothing particularly special about him, other than the fact that he takes 250 hits to go into overlimit. This is the highest number in the game by far. The second highest hit count to enter overlimit is 125. Raine literally only generates 0.4 tension every time it gets hit, and I have no idea why only he's like this. I think it might honestly be a mistake, because it's just a strangely high number. But yeah, the rest of the video is basically going to be a montage and a small outro, so I hope you enjoy. Well, this is the end of the video. Hopefully you guys learned something new about Overlimit, because I personally learned a lot while doing research for this video. I don't normally like using my voice for these kinds of videos too much, since I don't think my voice is that well suited for this kind of thing, nor do I have a great microphone, but I tried my best, so hopefully it was an interesting watch. In any case, if you've watched all the way to this point, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or need any clarifications, because my explanations might have been lacking in some aspect, I'm not sure. We'll find out, I guess.